Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Prasar Bharati. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. US President imposes sanctions on Russia for first time in his second term, targeting oil companies. Russia's Putin directs drills of Russia's nuclear forces as his summit with Trump is put on hold. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio departs for Israel as the US tries to double down on Gaza ceasefire. US Vice President JD Vance reaffirms support for a US brokered ceasefire plan to disarm Hamas and rebuild Gaza. US President warns of very serious action against Colombia, calls Colombian President Gustavo Petro a bad guy. Petro vows to take legal action against Trump. India versus New Zealand face-off in the Women's Cricket World Cup at Navi Mumbai today becomes a virtual quarter-final. The United States has hit Russia's major oil companies with sanctions on Wednesday and accused the Russians of a lack of commitment toward ending the conflict in Ukraine. The new sanctions were unveiled one day after plans for a summit between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin fell apart. Trump has held off on new sanctions for months, saying he hoped to persuade Russian President Putin to make peace despite growing frustration with the Kremlin leader. Trump said that he hopes new Russia oil sanctions will make Putin reasonable.
Today is a very big day in terms of what we're doing. Look, these are tremendous sanctions. These are very big. Those are against their two big oil companies, and we hope that they won't be on for long. We hope that the war will be settled. I think that they'll certainly have an impact. They're massive sanctions. It's sanctions on oil. The two biggest oil companies, among the biggest in the world, but they're Russian. They do a lot of oil. And hopefully it'll push, hopefully he'll become reasonable, and hopefully Zelensky will be reasonable too.
President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday oversaw a test of Russia's nuclear forces on land, sea and air to rehearse their readiness and command structure. The test included the launch of a land-based ERS intercontinental ballistic missile from a cosmodrome, the launch of a Sineva ballistic missile from a nuclear submarine in the Barents Sea, and the launch of nuclear-capable cruise missiles from strategic bombers. Meanwhile, Kremlin has released a video showing General Valery Gerasimov, head of the General Staff, reporting to President Putin on the drills. They included practice launches of intercontinental ballistic missiles which are capable of striking the US. Russia's defense ministry said on Wednesday that its forces had captured the village of Pavlivka in Ukraine's southeastern Zaporizhzhia region, as well as Ivanivka village in neighboring Dnipropetrovsk region. The ministry also said in a statement on Telegram that it had struck Ukraine's energy infrastructure in what it said was a response to Ukrainian attacks on Russian civilian targets. And US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has departed for Israel. This will be Rubio's fourth visit to Israel since taking office in January. According to the official, Rubio's visit will focus on supporting the successful implementation of Washington's ceasefire plan in Gaza. It follows the visits of US Vice President JD Vance and US envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner to the country this week. According to a statement from the State Department, Rubio will be in Israel until Saturday before then visiting Malaysia, Japan and South Korea. Israel's Prime Minister toughened his stance Wednesday by declaring that his country is in charge of its own security and isn't an American protectorate, as he prepared to discuss progress on Gaza's fragile ceasefire agreement with US President JD Vance. US Vice President JD Vance met with Israel's top leaders, reaffirming support for a US brokered ceasefire plan to disarm Hamas and rebuild Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu voiced strong opposition to Turkey's involvement in Gaza security. A joint US-Israel coordination center is now monitoring the truce and aid delivery as well. With US Secretary of State Marco Rubio set to arrive Thursday, Washington, D.C. is stepping up regional diplomacy.
US Vice President JD Vance and other key officials are in Israel to support a US-brokered ceasefire plan aimed at disarming Hamas, recovering bodies of hostages and rebuilding Gaza. As part of visit, Vance met with Israeli President Isaac Herzog and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Prime Minister said these are days of destiny, and we're very excited to sit down and work together on the Gaza peace plan. We have a very, very tough task ahead of us, which is to disarm Hamas, but rebuild Gaza to make life better for the people in Gaza, but also to ensure that Hamas is no longer a threat to our friends in Israel. That's not easy. I think the Prime Minister knows that as well as anybody, but it's something that we're committed to in the Trump administration, and I think even in the past 24 hours.
Vance emphasized the challenge of improving life in Gaza while ensuring Hamas no longer poses a threat to Israel. US and Israeli forces have opened a civil-military coordination center to monitor the truce and oversee humanitarian aid. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, however, signaled a strong opposition to Turkey's involvement in a proposed international force to oversee the ceasefire.
When it comes to Israel's security, we do what we have to do. That's always the case. That's not a question. But America has an interest in strong Israel, as you just heard from the Vice President. And Israel has an interest in strong America. America has other interests in this region. Where we can be flexible to accommodate that, that's good, because a strong America is in our interest.
The plan includes an international security force to maintain peace as Israel withdraws, though no US troops will enter Gaza. Turkey's possible role in the force has sparked Israeli concern. Despite recent violence, Vance expressed optimism that the ceasefire will hold. Later, Vice President Vance also met with President Herzog to discuss the broader peace initiative led by President Donald Trump. Herzog expressed optimism while Vance acknowledged ongoing challenges but said he remained hopeful for lasting peace, citing support from both Israel and Gulf Arab nations.
And I truly believe that the fact you're here is another brick in building the future for peace.
Despite continued ceasefire violation and tensions over aid delivery and hostage returns, the next phase of Trump plan requires more difficult steps, including Hamas disarmament and progress toward a Palestinian state commitment that have yet to be secured. Bureau Report, DD India.
The US military killed 2 alleged drug smugglers in a strike against a vessel in the Eastern Pacific Ocean, US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said on Wednesday. The strike is the first known US military operation in the Pacific since President Donald Trump started a new military offensive against the drug trade. This attack has expanded the Trump administration's use of the military in its counter-narcotics campaign. This has led to at least 7 strikes in the Caribbean and dramatically raised, in fact, US tensions with Venezuela and Colombia. The strike brings the total number to at least 8, leaving at least 34 people dead. US Defense Secretary said the vessel was known by American intelligence to be involved in illicit narcotics smuggling, was transiting along a known narco-trafficking transit route and carrying narcotics. US President Donald Trump and his Colombian counterpart Gustavo Petro traded angry threats on Wednesday. Trump said his administration had the legal authority to carry out strikes on vessels near Venezuela that are transporting drugs, but the administration may go back to Congress if it decides to start hitting targets on land. Trump also told reporters he may take very serious action against Colombia due to its role in the international narcotics trade. Trump branded Petro a thug and suggested he was a drug trafficker leading his country to ruin. He also called Colombian President Gustavo Petro a bad guy.
Well, he's a thug and bad guy. He's a guy that is making a lot of drugs. We've just, as of today, stopped all payments going to Colombia, the country Colombia. Also, the school Colombia. No, we settled. We made a settlement with him. But no, he's a thug. and he's a bad guy, and he's hurt his country very badly. They're doing very poorly, Colombia. They make cocaine. They have cocaine factories. They grow all sorts of crap that's drugs, bad drugs coming into the United States, goes generally through Mexico. And he better watch it or we'll take very serious action against him and his country. His country is, what he has led his country into is a death trap.
Meanwhile, Colombian President Gustavo Petro announced that he will take legal action in U.S. courts after President Trump called him a bad guy and threatened serious action against Colombia over drug trafficking. In a post on X, Petro said he would defend himself in court against the slanderous accusations made against him in the United States by high-ranking officials. The escalating tensions came as Trump told reporters at the White House he was suspending all payments to Colombia due to its role in the international narcotics trade. In mid-September, Trump decertified Colombia's counter-narcotics efforts, claiming the country failed to meet its obligations over the past year. And Peru deployed military personnel across Lima on Tuesday following the declaration by President Jose Herri of state of emergency aimed at curbing rising crime the day before. The government said the emergency decree includes measures such as limiting prison visits to once a week for ordinary inmates and once every 2 weeks for those under special regimes. Telecommunications equipment inside cells will be destroyed and electricity will be restricted to basic lighting. Herri led a high-profile operation at a local penitentiary and inspecting inmates and confiscating belongings. The visit was part of a broader crackdown on organized crime and prison control, which authorities say has worsened in recent months. The new president, who took office earlier this month after the ouster of Dina Boluarte, has made tackling crimes a central priority of his administration. Democratic U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon concluded a marathon speech opposing Republican President Donald Trump's agenda on Wednesday, the 22nd day of a government shutdown. Merkley declared he was ringing the alarm bells over what he called an authoritarian takeover, a system where he warned families lose and billionaires win. Merkley became the third Democrat this year to take the floor for a marathon protest speech. With Republicans controlling both the House and the Senate, Democrats have little legislative power. But this rare stand on the Senate floor became their stage, an act of resistance, using the power of words to delay proceedings and draw national attention to what they see as a fight for democracy itself.
I want to repeat my main mission statement for being here through the night, and that's to ring the alarm bells of alarm at this authoritarian takeover and at this strategy of doing authoritarian bills in which families lose and billionaires win. Families lose their health care or their nutrition benefits or their Medicaid in order to fund tax breaks for billionaires.
Leaders of countries participating in Western Balkan Summit arrived in London. The summit is expected to focus on efforts to reduce illegal migration as well as regional security and other shared threats. Britain sanctioned to smash criminal smuggling gangs operating in Balkans, producing forged documents used in human trafficking, and several others involved in financing such illegal migration. The government imposed sanctions on members of what it described as a Kosovo-based organized crime group responsible for producing false documents and supplying them to criminal gangs.
The Western Balkans has long been a vital transit route for the criminal smuggling gangs. You don't want to see those gangs operating in your territory, and we all suffer the consequences of their action. We're talking of a criminal enterprise here. A vile trade with people making huge amounts of money that directly impacts on all of us. So we have to take these gangs down, smash them, through proper, purposeful cooperation.
The German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, also attending the summit, urged further progress in the development of relations between Serbia and Kosovo, which Serbia considers a breakaway part of its own territory.
I'm delighted that we have also agreed on a common position today, a joint declaration on reconciliation and good neighborly relations. However, we must now breathe life into this. because the future of the 6 countries of the Western Balkans lies in the European Union. And today has shown once again that the Berlin process is helping them to progress along this path.
Over 23 people were arrested as hundreds of protesters and police clashed for the second night in a row outside an asylum seeker hotel near Dublin. Police launched bricks and fireworks as protesters. In fact, the unrest followed at least 6 arrests after tensions flared at a protest at the same location where a police van was also set on fire. The protests were sparked by reports that a 26-year-old man accused of sexually assaulting a 10-year-old girl in the vicinity of the hotel was an asylum seeker. Authorities have not yet commented on the claim. Irish Prime Minister had condemned violent protests and while abuse against police. Also, the Justice, Home Affairs and Migration Minister said more arrests will follow. Ireland and the UK have seen rising anti-immigration sentiment in recent years, with hotels housing asylum seekers common flashpoints for protests and violent riots. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Centre releases draft amendments to IT rules to address risks posed by deepfakes and AI-generated content. India now ranks 9th globally in terms of forest area. Stay tuned to know more. India looked to bounce back and level the series in the second ODI against Australia at Adelaide.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India Live. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj. India's green cover is growing and the world is taking notice. The country has moved up to the 9th position globally in terms of total forest area as per a latest report. DD India's Tripti Tripathi reports.
India has achieved another green milestone on the global stage. According to the Global Forest Resource Assessment 2025, released by the Food and Agriculture Organization in Bali, India now ranks 9th in the world in total forest area, moving up from the 10th position in the previous assessment. Union Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Bhupender Yadav, shared the achievement on social media, highlighting that India has also retained its 3rd position globally in annual forest area gain, a clear sign of the country's sustained commitment to environmental protection and sustainable forest management. Union Environment Minister credited this success to the visionary initiatives of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, including large-scale afforestation programs and people-led environmental actions. From Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam, a call inspiring millions to plant a tree in honor of their mothers, to nationwide afforestation drives and community-led conservation efforts, India's green journey has become a people's movement. As India rises to the 9th spot globally, it's not just about numbers. It is also about India's growing resolve to create a greener, cleaner, and sustainable future for generations to come. Tripti Tripathi's report for DD India.
And let's take a look at what else is making news in India. The filing of nominations for second phase of assembly elections in Bihar will end today. Out of a total 243 seats, 122 constituencies spread over 20 districts will go to polls in this phase on the 11th of November. So far, a total of 1,066 nomination papers have been filed by candidates from various political parties as well as independents for the second phase. Today is also last date for withdrawal of candidature for the first phase of assembly elections. India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal held a meeting with Executive Vice President for Clean, Just and Competitive Transition, Teresa Ribera, at the European Commission on the sidelines of 16th session of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. The two discussed avenues for enhanced India-EU cooperation aimed at achieving shared prosperity and sustainable growth. Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal also held a meeting with EU Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security, Maros Sefcovic, to discuss the positive resolution of outstanding issues related to India-EU Free Trade Agreement. The meeting comes ahead of Piyush Goyal's visit to Brussels next week. Both sides reaffirmed their shared commitment to strengthening and redefining the India-EU partnership. The Indian government has released draft amendments to IT rules to address the risks posed by deepfakes and AI-generated content. As per the proposal by the Ministry of Electronics and IT, major social media platforms must clearly label AI or synthetic content visibly for at least 10% of visuals and audibly for the first 10% of audio. Platforms such as Facebook, Instagram and X will also be responsible for verifying if user-uploaded content is real or AI-generated. Public feedback on the draft is invited until 6th of November 2025. The move aims to boost user awareness, curb misinformation and ensure responsible AI use. OpenAI to offer Britain's government and businesses an opportunity to store data in the UK from Friday, helping unlock the potential of AI for more companies and public services. The plan, secured through OpenAI's partnership with the Ministry of Justice, will enhance privacy and security as well as reinforcing resilience to cyber threats. Led by Sam Altman, OpenAI upended the tech industry with the launch of ChatGPT, its AI chatbot, in late 2022. It signed a partnership with the British government in July to work together to use AI to improve public services. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, he said number of people using its products in the UK had increased fourfold in the past year. And in sports, India versus New Zealand face-off in the Women's Cricket World Cup at Navi Mumbai on Thursday has become a virtual quarter-final. 3 teams have qualified for the semi-finals. The 4th spot is up for grabs and the winner of this match will move closer to booking the last spot in the Final 4. And of course, in men's cricket, India will hope to bounce back and level the series in the second one-day international against Australia at Adelaide on Thursday. Australia secured a 7-wicket win in the rain-affected opening game and took a 1-0 lead in the 3-match series. Former Indian captains Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma made their comeback after a 7-month break but struggled on Perth's testing surface. The game offers ideal conditions for a turnaround, especially for Kohli. He has scored 244 runs at an average of 61, including 2 centuries in 4 matches. Meanwhile, Australia would like to end the series at Adelaide with a win rather than leaving it for the decider at Sydney. There is no forecast for rain, but there's a possibility of strong winds and lightning ahead of the game. India's 2-time Olympic medalist and the star javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra was conferred with the honorary rank of Lieutenant Colonel in the Territorial Army on Wednesday. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh bestowed the insignia on the ace athlete. Indian Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi and other senior officials were present on the occasion. Enrolled in the Indian Army in 2016, Neeraj Chopra has served with the Rajputana Rifles. The star javelin thrower created history by becoming the first Indian athlete to win the Olympic gold in track and field at the Tokyo Olympics. And Liverpool bounced back in style with a 5-1 win over Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League. After going down early, the Reds scored 3 goals in just 9 minutes before halftime, with Hugo and Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahima Konate finding the net. Gakpo and Dominic added 2 more in the second half. The victory came as a relief to Liverpool fans as the team ended its run of 4 straight losses. And let's take a look at what else is making news around the world. Atlixco, a city in Mexico, is celebrating its annual Valle de Catrinas, a festival of part of the day of the dead season. Local artists have crafted towering skeleton figures over 3 meters tall using traditional papier-mâché techniques. These sculptures depict everyday Mexican workers and are beautifully set among the town's marigold fields. Notably, Day of the Dead is one of Mexico's most cherished traditions, where families come together to honor and remember those who have passed on. In Caracas, Venezuela, crowds gathered to celebrate the canonizations of Jose Gregorio Hernandez and Sister Carmen Rendeles. Hernandez, known for the Doctor of the Poor, is deeply loved across the country. However, a planned mass was cancelled by the Catholic Church due to tensions between President Nicolas Maduro and a Venezuelan cardinal. Despite this, marchers paid tribute with prayers and songs in the streets. That's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, and you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.